My name is Sarah Mitchell. I am 38 years old. And 3 nights ago, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea when my phone buzzed. I opened my banking app. The number at the top said zero. Not low, not overdrawn, zero. $42,500. Gone. Transferred in surgical increments to accounts I had never seen. The device ID, my sister's phone. I sat there, staring. My hands didn't shake, my voice didn't crack. I just opened a spreadsheet. Because here's what my sister didn't know about me. I'm an assistant admin, and I'm very, very good at my job. To understand why I wasn't screaming, you need to know what 14 years of steady looks like. Carla was always the pretty one. I was the steady one. Nobody writes songs about steady. I was 24 when I became a mother. Single, no ring, no partner, no safety net, just a baby, a mattress on the floor, and a stack of bills that grew faster than my daughter. Carla was the one who helped me move into that first apartment. She carried boxes up 3 flights of stairs in heels, laughing the whole way up, making it feel like an adventure instead of a defeat. She co-signed my first lease. I remember the pen in her hand, the way she didn't even hesitate. Family helps family, she said. And I believed her. I believed her for 14 years. It started small, a Netflix password, then my Amazon login, then a shared grocery store rewards account. Each one felt harmless. Sisters sharing, the way sisters do, but the sharing only ever went one direction. When Carla needed $3,200 for a semester of community college, I transferred it the same afternoon. She said she'd pay me back by Christmas. That was 2011. She never mentioned it again, and I never asked. When her car broke down 8 months later, I co-signed the repair loan. She made 2 payments, then stopped. The collection calls came to my phone. I let it go. That's what sisters do. Our parents had a way of looking at Carla that they never quite managed with me. She was the one they introduced first at family dinners. I was the afterthought. And Sarah works in an office. My mother once told me, while we were washing dishes, that she wished I could be a little more like your sister, more open, more fun. I was 28 years old. I had a daughter, a full-time job, and I was paying half their mortgage. Carla was living in their basement. But she was fun. I was steady. By the time I was 30, I had built something real. An apartment with actual furniture, a savings account that crossed 5 figures for the first time, a job at a property management firm where I spent my days dealing with permissions, security protocols, access logs. It wasn't glamorous. Nobody at Thanksgiving ever asked me about it. But I was good at it. Meticulous, organized. The person they called when something needed to be found or fixed or tracked. Lily was growing up the way quiet children do, watching everything, saying little, understanding more than anyone gave her credit for. At 9, she started a notebook tracking her allowance down to the penny. At 10, she asked me what a credit score was. I had logged her into my banking app the year before so she could practice reading her small allowance balance and learn what numbers meant. She was too old for 11. I recognized it because I had been the same way. Carla, meanwhile, had met Todd. Todd worked in consulting, which seemed to mean different things depending on who was asking. He drove a car that was too nice for his explanation of it. Carla adored him. She said he was going to change everything. He did, just not the way she meant. Over the years, the sharing between us had quietly escalated. Netflix became bank account access. Just in case of emergency, you know how it is. Emergency became routine. She had my login credentials, my security questions, my mother's maiden name that served as backup verification on half my accounts. I had given her the keys to my entire financial life, one small favor at a time. I should have seen it. The signs were there, the sudden interest in my savings, the questions about how much had accumulated, the time she borrowed my phone, and I found my banking page still open in the browser. Small things, easy to explain away when the person doing them is your sister. Then one night, everything I had built in 14 years disappeared in a stream of notifications. The first thing I heard was soft footsteps. I had been staring at the 0 on my screen for, I don't know how long. Long enough that the ice in my tea had melted. long enough that my hands had gone cold without my noticing. Lily stood in the doorway in her oversized t-shirt, hair a static halo around her face, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She looked at my face, then at the phone in my hand, then back at my face. She didn't ask what was wrong. She just crossed the kitchen, climbed onto the chair beside me, and pulled her knees to her chest. "Mom," she said quietly, "don't worry, I handled it." My heart hammered. I turned to her, confused, exhausted, afraid in a whole new direction. There was nothing a child should have been able to handle in that moment. "What do you mean you handled it?" She reached for her tablet on the table, the one I'd given her for school. Her face was calm, almost bored. "When your banking notification came in, mine did too. Because you logged me in for allowance practice, remember? I saw the number, and you taught me the red shield is for emergencies." She turned the screen toward me. At the top of the app, a banner I had missed in my blind shock. "Temporary hold applied? Suspicious activity under review?" My daughter had frozen my accounts. "I also checked the map," she said, sliding the tablet closer. "You never turned off location sharing from the state fair." She pointed to a blinking dot 30 miles out of town, a Motel 6 off the interstate. "Aunt Carla's dot," she said. The way she said it, flat, certain, like she had done the math and arrived at an answer she didn't particularly like, broke something open in my chest. The money wasn't gone. Not yet. It was suspended in digital limbo, halfway between stolen and saved. But Lily finding it first, sitting here with her tablet, her small shoulders straight, that was when I understood how long she had been watching, how much she had already absorbed from a life lived beside mine. I pulled her into a hug so fast she made a surprised sound. She smelled like strawberry shampoo. I held on longer than I should have. "We still have to figure out what to do," she said into my shoulder. "I know," I said, "but we have time now." She nodded and rested her head against me for exactly 3 seconds. Then she straightened up, picked up her tablet, and said, "Do you want me to write down everything I remember about which apps Aunt Carla touched on your phone?" I stared at her. "She did it a lot," Lily said. "I kept a list in my notebook. I thought it was weird, but I didn't know why." I thought about my daughter at 8, organizing toys by color, at 9, tracking every penny, at 10, asking about credit scores. "Yeah," I said, "I'd like that list." The call came 3 days after the freeze. Carla's voice was different than I had ever heard it. Not sweet, not charming. "What did you do?" No greeting, just those 4 words, low and sharp, like she'd been rehearsing them. "I froze my accounts," I said. "You froze? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Her voice was climbing now, cracking at the edges. "I had payments scheduled. Transfers. People are expecting, She stopped herself, but I heard it. People. Not, "I needed that money." Not, "I was going to pay you back." People are expecting. "You're just an assistant admin, Sarah. You don't understand how any of this works." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Carla," I said very quietly. "Which people?" She hung up. My friend Elena was sitting across from me. She had been there since the second night, the night I told her everything. Elena worked in paralegal services. She had a legal pad in front of her, and she had been writing the entire time. "Keep that phone," she said. "Don't delete anything." I didn't. 2 days later, the email arrived. No sender name, a Proton mail address, random letters and numbers. The subject line was blank. Inside was a link to a form I had never heard of, and a screenshot. The screenshot was a photo of me and Lily walking into her school. Below it, someone had written, "Maybe someone should check on the kid's schedule." I stared at it. I know I stared for a long time because when I finally looked up, the kitchen light had shifted. The sun had moved. I had no memory of the time passing. I closed the laptop. I walked to Lily's room and stood in the doorway. She was at her desk, headphones on, doing homework, pencil moving, completely unaware. I went to the bathroom. I turned on the faucet. I stood with cold water running over my wrists until the shaking stopped. And it did take a while to stop. I'm telling you this because I want you to know that handling it did not mean I wasn't terrified. I was terrified every single day. The difference was that I had a daughter asleep down the hall, and terror was not a strategy. I dried my hands. I went back to the kitchen. I called Elena. "We need a detective," I said. Elena knew someone. His name was Detective James Miller, State Financial Crimes Division. He had a tired voice and a way of listening that made you feel like he had heard this exact story before, because he had. "Yeah, you stop responding to them," Miller told me on the first call. "You document everything, every email, every text, every call log, dates, times, screenshots. You build the file and you let me work." "For how long?" I asked. "As long as it takes." Todd found me at the grocery store. Aisle 7. Paper towels and cleaning supplies. Lily was 3 aisles over, comparing cereal boxes the way she always did, reading nutrition labels, calculating price per ounce in her head. Todd appeared at the end of the aisle, hands in his jacket pockets. He didn't approach. He just stood there, looking at me the way you look at something you're deciding whether to pick up or step on. Then he turned and walked out. 20 minutes later, a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Nice store. Tell Lily I said hi." I saved the screenshot. I forwarded it to Elena. I forwarded it to Miller. That night, I installed a deadbolt on Lily's bedroom door. She watched me from the hallway with her arms crossed. "Mom, is something bad happening?" "Something happened," I said, "and I'm handling it." She nodded. Not like a child, like someone who had already decided to trust me. Day 47 was the worst. Miller had gone quiet. 9 days, no updates. The investigation felt like a room with the lights off. I knew things were in there. I just couldn't see them. 3 nights before that, Carla had texted me about Lily's upcoming birthday. "Hey, is Lily still into art stuff? Thinking of getting her something." I sat with that text for 20 minutes. My sister, in Friday, who had stolen $42,000 from me, whose husband had photographed my daughter outside her school, who had threatened me on the phone, was asking what to get my child for her birthday, like nothing had happened, like this was still normal. I typed back, "She's still into drawing. Yeah, thanks for thinking of her." I sent it. I put the phone down. And then I sat very still for a long time because I had just lied to my sister while a detective was quietly building a case against her, and my daughter was asleep 10 feet away, and I could not let any of it show. Not in my voice, not in my texts, not in my face. That was the hardest part, not the fear, the performance. Day 47, I sat at my kitchen table at 11 p.m. with the banking app open. The unfreeze button sat in the middle of the screen, blue and patient. 1 click and everything goes back to normal. 1 click and Carla stops calling. I stared at that button for 11 minutes. I know because the microwave clock was in my peripheral vision, and I watched it change twice, 11:04 to 11:15. My finger hovered over the trackpad. The apartment was completely silent except for the refrigerator humming and Lily breathing in the next room. I didn't click it. I closed the laptop. I made chamomile tea. I drank it standing at the kitchen counter in the dark, staring at the wall. Elena called the next morning. "Stay the course," she said. "Miller's working. Trust the process." I trusted the process. 3 days after day 47, a man named Mark Davis walked into a county office and asked to speak with someone about a financial matter involving a child. Mark was 41. He ran a small tax preparation service. He had a wife, a 2-year-old son, and a growing suspicion that the investment consulting he'd been funneling client referrals through wasn't what Todd had described. "Because there's a kid involved," Mark told Miller. "That changes things." Miller called me that evening, first time in 12 days. "We can work with this," he said. The 4 of us, me, Elena, Miller, and Mark, met at Elena's apartment, yellow legal pads on the coffee table, laptops open. Mark brought a banker's box of receipts. Lily was at the kitchen table doing homework. At some point during the meeting, she slid a piece of notebook paper under the door. On it, she had drawn a 2-column chart: bad feelings apps and safe apps. Under bad feelings, she had listed every app on my phone that, in her words, made my face change when I opened it. She had dated each entry going back 4 months. She had been keeping her own records the entire time. Elena picked up the paper and looked at me. "She's your daughter," Elena said. "No question." The next 2 weeks were the quietest and the loudest of my life. Quiet because I said almost nothing. I went to work. I picked up Lily. I made dinner. I checked the deadbolt twice every night. Loud because inside my head, every piece was falling into place. Miller had Mark's testimony. The case had grown large enough that it had been escalated. Federal wire fraud statutes meant the state task force was now coordinating with the FBI field office. Elena had 3 binders of documentation. And I had an Excel spreadsheet with every transaction, every device fingerprint, every permission change, organized the way only someone who had spent their career managing other people's systems would know how to organize it. Carla called me just an assistant admin. She was right. I was the best admin she had ever met. And now Miller said it was time. "We need you to wear a wire," he said. "As a cooperating witness. This is standard procedure for a federal case at this stage. You'll be fully briefed, you'll have agents nearby, and you control when it ends." Miller and an FBI coordinator prepped me for 3 hours. What to say? What not to say? How to steer toward the transfers without sounding like I was steering? How to stay calm when Carla got defensive? How to breathe when Todd got close? "People like this want someone to know how clever they were," Miller said. "You just have to give them the space to say it." The wire was small, smaller than I expected, a flat adhesive disc pressed against my sternum. It was warm almost immediately. I could feel it with every breath. I dropped Lily at Elena's apartment. She stood in the doorway in her school clothes, backpack still on, watching me the way she had been watching me for 47 days. "I'll be back in a few hours," I said. She looked at me, not scared, assessing. "Okay," she said, then quieter. "Be careful." I kissed her forehead. Her hair smelled like the strawberry shampoo she'd been using since she was 6. I walked to the park. Every step felt like walking through water. The afternoon light was flat and gray. Miller was parked 2 blocks east in an unmarked sedan. Mark Davis's wife, Karen, an elementary school teacher who had not known what her husband had been involved in until 3 weeks ago, sat in a coffee shop across the street with a clear sight line to the bench where I was supposed to wait. I sat down. I folded my hands in my lap. I waited. Carla came from the south end of the path. Thinner than the last time I had seen her. Her eyes kept moving, scanning faces, exits, reflections in glass. Todd was 20 feet behind her, hands in his pockets, counting exits. She sat next to me, close, our shoulders almost touching. "You really screwed things up, Sarah." I didn't say anything. "The accounts are frozen. The transfers stopped. People are calling Todd every day asking where their money is. Do you understand what that means?" "What people?" I asked, the same question I had asked on the phone. Calm, quiet. Carla exhaled through her nose, a sound somewhere between frustration and contempt. "We were moving funds," she said, "borrowing momentum from new accounts to cover older positions. Todd calls it bridge investing. It's not illegal, Sarah. It's how things work." "How many accounts?" "Enough." "How much money total?" She paused, looked at Todd, who was leaning against a tree, arms crossed. "Relax," he called over. "She's scared. She won't do anything." Carla turned back to me. "Just unfreeze the accounts. We'll move the money back. Nobody has to know." I let the silence stretch. "Carla," I said, "how much?" Another pause. Then, almost casually, like she was ordering coffee, "About 200,000, give or take." $200,000, moving through accounts seated with my 42,500. My sister had not just stolen from me, she had used me as the foundation for a pipeline. The first crack came from behind us. Karen Davis walked out of the coffee shop and crossed the street. She was carrying a manila folder. Her hands were steady, but her jaw was tight. She walked directly to Todd. "You lied," she said. Not loud, not dramatic. The voice of a woman who had run out of the patience required for drama. "You told Mark it was investment consulting. You told him the money was clean. You never said there was a child involved." Todd's face changed. The measuring look disappeared. Something flatter took its place. Karen, this isn't... Mark filed a statement with federal financial crimes yesterday, she said. I brought a copy for you. She handed him the folder. That was collapse layer 1. Carla stood up. What is this? Sarah, what did you... 2 agents in plain clothes stepped out from behind the maintenance building at the north end of the park. They walked without hurrying, badges on lanyards. Carla Mitchell, Todd Garrett, we need you to come with us. Carla grabbed my arm. Her grip was hard, desperate, her fingernails pressing crescents into my skin. You did this, she said. I looked at her, my sister, the pretty one, the fun one, the one my mother wished I could be more like. I said 3 words. No, you did. She stared at me. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. The agent placed his hand on her shoulder and guided her forward. Todd was already being led to the second vehicle, his hands behind his back, his consulting career dissolving in the space between one breath and the next. I sat on the bench. The wire was still warm against my chest. I didn't move. I didn't feel victorious sitting on that bench. I felt hollow. The sound of Carla's voice saying you did this stayed with me longer than I expected. Not because she was right, but because it used to be her voice that called me on my birthday. That read bedtime stories to Lily when she was 4. That laughed going up 3 flights of stairs with boxes. Grief doesn't ask permission. It just shows up. That evening, Elena drove Lily home. My daughter climbed out of the car slowly, searching my face. I knelt in front of her before she could ask anything. She can't hurt us anymore, I said. Lily nodded, absorbing the words. Then, is she going to jail? Yes, for a while. She thought about that. Then she went inside, sat at the table, and pulled out her sketchbook without a word. I watched her draw in silence, the way she always did when her mind was sorting something too big for regular talking. 2 days later, my mother called. I had been waiting for it. I had rehearsed different versions of the conversation in the shower, in the car, in the 10 minutes before sleep. The real version was shorter than any of them. Are you sure it was her? My mother asked. Not how are you, not are you and Lily okay. Are you sure? Yes, I said, I'm sure. There was a pause. Then, she's always had a hard time, Sarah, you know that. She and Todd were going through... I know, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. I just think family should... Mom, I said, I have to go. I put the phone down. I didn't cry. I had already done that earlier, standing at the bathroom sink with cold water on my wrists, which I had learned by then was my particular way of getting through things. That conversation with my mother told me something I think I had known for a long time. The people who benefited from my steadiness would always find reasons to explain away what it cost me. That was the last piece that needed to fall into place. My apartment is small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen with a window that faces east. I picked it because of that window. Every morning, the sun comes in before my alarm goes off, and the light lands on the kitchen counter in a rectangle that moves about an inch to the left each week as the seasons change. I painted the walls a color called coastal fog. It's not blue, it's not gray. It's the color of the sky right before the sun fully commits to rising. I chose it myself. Nobody told me it was too plain or too boring or not fun enough. I make coffee now, real coffee. A pour-over with beans I grind myself, the kind that smells like the inside of a good bookstore. I stand at the counter and watch the water darken as it passes through the grounds, and I don't check my phone until the cup is full. Lily has the bigger bedroom. She insisted on the smaller one, but I gave her the bigger one anyway because her room has a desk now. A real desk, not a repurposed TV tray. And she needs space for the notebooks. She has 7 of them, color-coded, 1 for school, 1 for budgeting practice, 1 she won't let me read. She's 12 now. She understands compound interest. Last week she showed me a monthly expense tracker she built on her school laptop, categories, percentages, and projected savings by the end of the year. Some mornings I sit on the small balcony with my coffee and just breathe. The neighborhood is quiet. There's a woman 2 floors down who waters her plants at the same time, every day, and we wave at each other, but we've never spoken. No, I like that. I like that silence can just be silence now without anything hiding inside it. Carla took a plea deal. 18 months in a minimum security facility plus full restitution. Todd got 42 months. The forensic accountant traced $312,000 through 17 accounts, more than even Miller had estimated. My mother hasn't called again. I think she might. Eventually. I think it will be on Lily's birthday because she won't be able to help herself. I think the conversation will be short and careful. I think that will be enough. Elena still comes over on Thursdays. We drink wine and she tells me about her cases, and I tell her about the new filing system I built at work. It sounds boring. It is boring. I have never been happier to be boring. Looking back, I learned two things. The first, shared blood is not a shared bank account. Family is not a firewall. The people closest to you have the most access to your passwords, your patterns, your trust, and sometimes the most dangerous breach is the one you authorize yourself, one small favor at a time. I gave Carla everything she needed to dismantle me, and I handed it over with love. The second, financial freedom is the realest kind of freedom there is. Not money as luxury, money as the power to say no, money as the distance between you and someone who wants to control you. Every dollar I rebuilt after Carla, every deposit into that new account at a new bank with a new password that nobody else knows, was a brick in a wall that belongs to me. Lily will know this. She already does. She's building her own wall, one spreadsheet at a time. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. The wire, the investigation, the months of silence, the look on my sister's face when she realized what I had done. I don't think about her face. I think about the balcony, the coffee, the rectangle of light on the kitchen counter, the sound of Lily's pencil scratching in her notebook at 7 a.m, before either of us has said a word. I think about what it feels like to exhale after holding your breath for 14 years. People tell you revenge is a dish best served cold. But this wasn't revenge. Revenge is loud. Revenge needs the other person to see it, feel it, know they lost. What I did was quieter than that. What I did was build a door, walk through it, and close it behind me. Not with a slam, with a click. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing dramatic at all. So let me ask you something. If your sister, your own blood, the person who carried boxes up 3 flights of stairs when you had nothing, if she stole everything you built, used your daughter's access as the entry point, and then told you that you were too small to understand what she had done, would you have done what I did? Built the case quietly, worn the wire, sat on that bench and waited? Or would you have confronted her the moment you found out? Would not screamed, fought, let the whole family know exactly what she was? I chose silence. I chose patience. I chose 47 days of staring at a blue button and not clicking it. Some days I wonder if that makes me strong. Other days I wonder if it just makes me slow. Tell me, what would you have done? Remember that kitchen table? The one where she sat at 11 o'clock at night, staring at a 0 on her screen, and her daughter padded out in bare feet and quietly showed her the accounts were already frozen? That little girl had been watching, had been taking notes, had been learning from 11 years of living beside her mother that you don't wait for someone else to protect you. She's in a different kitchen now, her own kitchen, with a window that faces east and walls painted a color she chose herself. The coffee is better. The silence is different. It's the kind that doesn't have anything hiding inside it. Every quiet moment she chose herself. Every time she didn't raise her voice, didn't click, didn't flinch. Those weren't moments of weakness. Those were the blueprints. Every I didn't was a brick in the life she was building. And her daughter knew it, had always known it, was building her own version, one notebook at a time. Maybe you know someone like Sarah, someone who gets called steady, like it's a consolation prize, someone whose strength is so quiet that the people around her mistake it for softness. Maybe you're sitting at your own kitchen table right now. If this story stayed with you, if you're still thinking about that bench in the park, or that blue button, or those 3 words, subscribe. I share stories like this every week. Stories about women who chose silence over screaming and won. And that question, Would you have chosen patience, or would you have confronted her? I want to hear your answer. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. You know, the loudest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's a door closing quietly behind you, a cup of coffee in a kitchen you chose, a daughter who learned early that strength doesn't have to raise its voice. The quietest power is knowing you don't need them to see it. Until next time.